Oh, hi everybody. My name is Matt Storrs, and if you guys don't mind, I'm just going to dispense with the pleasantries and begin. My favorite color has always been purple. Yeah. And I have always believed in magic. So when I was in first grade, I wanted to be a purple witch for Halloween. Thank you. My parents weren't as enthused. They suggested I be a purple wizard instead. And I'm like, no, wizards are just con men in capes. Witches actually know spells. So I got my mom's purple moo-moo. I got a purple pointy hat. It's called a hennin. And I went out trick-or-treating in my neighborhood. Unfortunately, some of my friends saw me and they called me gay. They're half right. One of them was kind of creative, though. He called me a Wiccan grimace. For those of you who don't know, I learned later that the grimace is an anthropomorphized milkshake made popular by the McDonald's Corporation. I was very creative, gold star. But then calling me gay led to the best comeback I have ever used in my life, which was purple isn't a gay color. It's a royal color, you peasant. That was worth not having any friends. Yeah, I did have trouble making friends. In second grade, we had this rule that if you're going to bring in treats on your birthday, you had to bring in treats for your entire class. I misinterpreted that rule. So on my birthday, I brought in cupcakes for the entire second grade class. I brought in 200 cupcakes. Thank you. Again, they weren't as happy about it. A friend of mine told me I just did that so people would like me. And I said, no, I did that because I have a reading comprehension problem. I see somebody about it on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Enjoy your cupcake. Communication was hard in my family. The first time my mom asked me if I was gay, we were stopped at a stoplight waiting to turn left, which is the perfect place for that conversation to happen. And she was great. She was like, Matt, no matter what your answer is, your dad and I are still going to love you. And I answered her honestly. I said, you know what, I don't really know. I have to think about it. Beautiful moment. Then my mom turned left into oncoming traffic. The light was still red. Yeah. And so now, anytime I think about my sexual orientation, my life flashes before my eyes. My sexual orientation, yeah, it's panic. The first time somebody told me that they were pansexual, I'm like, oh, you're also panic sexual? And they're like, oh, honey, that's not what that means. I'm sorry that happened to you. Yeah, my family sent me to a religious middle school, and it was okay in some ways. Like, I saw my first concert at that school. It was a Simon and Garfunkel cover band called Simon and Gomorrah. They rewrote all of their songs to be about the Bible. My favorite song of theirs was The Sound of Sodom, which was a take on the sound of silence. And the worst part about it was I hadn't heard Simon and Garfunkel before. So when I finally did, I'm like, this secular music rips off our good Christian music. It's embarrassing. I knew I wasn't cool in that school because people stopped saying bless you whenever I sneezed. But I got back at them. I started saying I love you whenever anybody sneezed. Like, kid in my class, teacher, it didn't matter. And eventually one of my teachers took me aside and was like, hey, we practice the Christian ideal of metanoia. There are 7 different types of Christian love, but stop doing it, it's creepy. I still do it though. It gets me in trouble on the train. Like the other day, a guy sneezed on the train and I was like, I love you. He's like, yeah, not interested. And he stormed off the train. But it's worth it though, because a little boy came up to me and tugged on my shirt and was like, hey, keep trying. Somebody will love you. So I encourage you all to do it. It was nice at that school. I did get the opportunity to confront one of my bullies. That's not It's not, they just punched me. But I got the opportunity to decide how I reacted to that. So I hugged him. And I said, we don't have to throw down. We just have to hug each other till the anger goes away. He punched me 2 more times. I don't think it helped matters that I had my tongue in his ear. But I am a compassionate person. I've been dating, and I had a date go really well, and at the end of the night we went back to their place, and neither one of us had protection. And they're like, well, what do you want to do now? And I said, well, what board games do you have? And I gotta say, that game of Risk was way better than anything else we were gonna do that night. Also lasted longer too. It's a very long game. I try it. Okay. I went on a date not too long ago, and very quickly on the date, the person told me that they were in a polyamorous relationship. I said, thank you very much. Thank you for being forward about that. And then a couple minutes later, yeah, good. It's a polite thing to do. Then a couple minutes later, they're like, hey, what's your relationship like with your ex? Like, pretty good. I'm like, okay, cool. You know, me and my partner are kind of interested in maybe you joining us, and maybe like you could talk to your ex too. Maybe they could join us as well. And I'm like, no, you do not change unicorns midstream. This date is over. People are dating here, I assume, correct? Yeah, fine, okay. I have a new tip. Anytime you break up with somebody, this is what I do. Anytime I break up with somebody or our relationship ends, I will update my will, and I will designate a portion of my 401k to go to my ex. So that whenever I die, eventually a lawyer will have to seek them out and be like, Matt dated you long enough for him to learn your last name. Here's $15. It's like a class action lawsuit you don't know you're in. Like, the dates were bad, but the money is nice. Yeah, all right. I decided I wanted to be cool, and in my mind, one of the coolest things you can do is smoke cigars. And so in an hour, I learned everything I could about cigars, and I went to my local cigar shop. And they must have thought I was really cool, because the cashier met me at the door, and she's like, hey, you like those bold and strong cigars? I said, yeah, because I wanted the lie to be real. And then she invited me into the humidor, and she sold me the most expensive cigar there. And then she invited me to smoke it inside the store. And when I woke up, the EMTs explained that high levels of nicotine when you've never smoked before will cause something called a vasovagal response, and it'll make you pass out. And I was also told I was not allowed to come back to the cigar shop because they didn't have something called liability insurance, which isn't a very cool business practice, but it is pretty bold. Give it up for liability insurance, everybody. How many of us know what liability insurance is? Okay, good, fantastic. I have to buy some of that. I wanted to make new friends, so I joined a men's cooking group. And I wanted to make a good impression the first night, so I went over early, and the host was like, hey, will you get me a can of beans out of my pantry? I said, sure. Went into his pantry, only one can of beans, and it was bloated. So I took it back out and I threw it away. He's like, why'd you do that? I'm like, oh, it was bloated, it had botulism, it was dangerous. He's like, no, I probably just dropped it at some point. You just wasted that can of beans, and you ruined dinner. So needless to say, I did not join that men's group, because they all died of botulism. Yeah, dangerous. My bank called me and told me I needed to start paying my student loans. They said, Mr. Storrs, you knew the risks when you signed up for those loans. And I said, you knew the risks when you gave student loans to a liberal arts major. That was a bad investment. At my religious middle school, I have to tell you this, they didn't believe in evolution. So one day in science class, our teacher tried to disprove the theory of evolution by saying that the fossil record didn't have in-between animals, but it should. And she's like, yeah, cows and whales are supposed to be related. You don't see half cow, half whales in the fossil record. And to prove her point, she pulled out a stuffed animal. Front half of it was a cow, back half of it was a whale. She's like, you don't see any of these guys in the fossil record now, do you? And if anybody can tell me how these two things could possibly be related, you get to take him home. And I now know it's not scientifically accurate, but I raised my hand and I went, yeah, excuse me. That looks like a manatee. A sea cow, if you will. And I was excused from science class for 2 weeks. Anyway, folks, I'm Matt Storrs. Thank you so much for listening. You have a great rest of your night.